me.
Hey, great. And you got a great camera going there too. I appreciate that.
That's right.
Well, I'm actually floating in space. You might see some green, but I'm actually in space right now. Just kind of floating around
Awesome.
in the spiritual world that I am. And man, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics tonight. Now, I kind of interchange synchronicity and hunches and intuition and different things like that. And I'm going to find out why women have intuition and guys get hunches. We're going to get to that, but we're going to be talking about your book, Radical,
Yay.
because I figure, hey, I'm kind of with you on this. If you got a little bit of it and it's working, why not multiply it? Why not radicalize it and see what else you can get out of that?
Exactly.
Well, before we get going, though, Kim, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience? Who are you? What you about? And why'd you write the book?
Yeah, I'm Kim. I just came out with my new book. It came out on Election Day, Radical Intuition. So I'm out and talking about it with a lot of people right now, and I think it's really timely with everything that's happening in the world right now. It's so important, as we're going through so much in so many different ways. For no matter what you think, or whatever your political disposition is on this thing, reconnecting with ourselves is so important right now. So really making that shift and learning to listen to our inner voice and that inner truth when all of this craziness is happening around there everywhere we go. This is really what I've been talking about, and I'm really excited about right now.
Wow, and it is timely. I picked it up, started reading, and I couldn't put it down. I'm not through it yet, but man, what I've read is pretty awesome. People, and I like your view. It's not a political book, and there's got to be some things that all Americans can be kind of thinking about. Peace and love and those things. I mean, why would there even be an issue? Why would that can't be debated? I mean, intuition seems rather innocuous, but I mean, if I would hope that maybe our intuition would lead us to be better humans.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that. I mean, you put it in the point that you can reach your goals and the truth of your life, which I really like, and we'll talk about. But maybe you can do something even better than that. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where it all comes in, because all of us, we have that inner connection to truth and our purpose in life and all of those great things that our intuition tells us when it talks to us every day. So the more we connect with that, the more we naturally become quote unquote better people, because we start listening to ourselves and our inner guidance instead of all this conditioning. So we spent so much of our lives just listening to the world tells us about us, who we are, what we're supposed to do, all of those social pressures that we've been raised with, all that unconsciousness that we face every day. So when we, begin to start to turn that off and really reconnect with that real truth inside us, our quote unquote inner truth,
Mm-hmm.
that is what allows us to really become free of all of this craziness and live the lives that we've been made for.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think one of the things you just mentioned there about conditioning, I would put it programming.
Same.
And
Exactly.
man, there's one thing I can't stand because I have to really think and examine why do I have the beliefs that I do. I don't want them being programmed into me, and then I don't know that they're really not mine. That somebody wanted me to have it. And those things are they're sinister. They're subtle, and they come in. But this world is about people manipulating people,
Yes.
trying to get ahead in any way they can, and manipulation, conditioning, programming is a big part of that.
Yeah, and that's what, I always talk about with intuition, with those first impressions and all those different things that we get. Our intuition is really our BS detector, It tells us when people are manipulating us and when situations aren't quite right. Even though our mind, rationally and linearly, everything seems to add up, our intuition can tell us when something's off. And the more we sort of start to tune into that and start listening to that subtle sort of knowing feeling inside us that might speak against our mind or what makes sense, right? When we start tuning into this, then we're able to really reconnect with like the reality of life and not this illusion that the world wants us to buy into.
Mm-hmm. I was having coffee with my wife at a little coffee shop today, and a couple came in and they were saying how they're taking their kids to do some outdoor activities, and I was thinking, I love it when I hear somebody's doing something without a phone.
Yes, so
Or
true.
without a digital pad of some kind. I mean, kids today they're getting ripped off, and now we've immersed them in a digital world of education, which, as far as I can tell, is not really working.
Mhm.
So, um, people need the real. We got to find out what's real, and it's a battle, Kim. And I know you must have battled some things yourself. Did you during the course of this book throw off beliefs, or were you amazed yourself at, wow, this is kind of me, but I got to put it in there, even if I suppose I've been through it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's something I put myself out there every day with this, because if you get intuition, you get it, right? So that I don't have to explain it to you, but a lot of people don't get intuition. They don't understand why it's so important, because we've been taught, and this is part of this conditioning, we've been taught we've been raised, go to school to be really smart. We can trust our rational thinking mind, but we've been taught this other part of our brain, this creative, intuitive part of our brain. That's this nebulous thing that we're not sure of. And intuition, maybe that's not even real. Maybe that's something we're making up, or it's evil. We've been conditioned to so many negative things about intuition. So I really have to overcome those barriers when I help people understand that really intuition is just another aspect of our thinking process. We can think intellectually and rationally, or we can think intuitively. And that they're complementary forces. They don't have to be one against the other. And really, when we access real genius, people like Einstein and Steve Jobs and all kind of people who've just really done amazing things, they realize that they do that by using both sides of our brain. Right, by being really, really smart, and also being really intuitive and tapping into that genius within us.
All right, we have a question from our chat here. Teflon Coat says, do mesmerizers use these techniques in their summations of events?
That's an interesting question. And, I've often thought about, are we talking about people who would use their intuition to, I'm guessing, to make other people sort of feel like mesmerizing? Is that what we're talking about, like hypnosis?
I can't determine what that really means there. As first of all, I don't know what the techniques are. So
right.
So that question needs to be clarified a little bit. I get them like that, and it's hard for me. I know they write them quick, so it's kind of hard that way. All right, let's get another question from Rapid Fire. How can we protect ourselves energetically from the growing impact of 5G networks? Then he says to go on, I've heard they impact your intuition.
Yeah, we don't really know. That's such an interesting conversation, and I hear so many people talking about this right now. And I really do feel, though, regardless of the technology and the frequencies involved, I think that we do have a natural barrier, all of us. It's part of the way we're built. So I personally don't feel that that's going to be an issue with intuition, as long as we stay healthy and keep that sort of natural barrier intact that we have just as part of our human energy field. It's kind of like our atmosphere. I think that shouldn't be an issue, but who knows? It's definitely something to be vigilant about, because we don't really know all the impacts of technology, and we really want to make sure that we're staying connected and protected intuitively.
Mm-hmm. And well, there's still a lot of studies out there. I know they're saying that cell phones cause brain cancer, and it interferes with us genetically in some way. I suppose that some people speculate. There's a lot of speculation. Again, though, then it goes back to truth. Well, how do you know what you're hearing is truth? Now, today, my Facebook had pictures, just throwing this out there. So I don't mean to be political. It's just coming out as 1,000 different variations, but it has John Roberts, Supreme Court, with pictured supposedly with Ghislaine Maxwell. Well, people were forwarding that all over the place. But I look at it and I'm thinking, man, that's photoshopped. And I do a lot more photoshops, and it's just because it's fun. But I make memes from it, and it's not meant to be a truther. You know what I'm saying? It's not meant to say the truth. Right. But people are getting these messages, and they hang on to them, and it can alter their state of mind and their mood. And so the people that maybe without intent are screwing with other people's minds. So how do we discern? How would you say our intuition? Would you say, look at that picture and say, well, is that, not knowing if it's so good that you couldn't tell if it's photoshopped, or perhaps it's somebody else? I mean, it doesn't necessarily look like it, not in my point of view, but people are claiming that. So how would you use your intuition to look at that and say, that's not it, and I'm not going to internalize that, I'm moving on?
Right. Well, I like the word that you just used, discernment, first of all, because I think that's a really crucial word when it comes to things like fake news, and there's so much of it out there right now. So this is one of the many reasons why intuition is so important. And first of all, I'd like to say, it's very healthy to limit our time on social media doing stuff like that, or limit, what you scroll through in your feed, and just sort of keep it in chunks, and set some boundaries, because you can get sucked into that, and it's so easy to do that, and that really does sort of diminish your intuition, because you get that mind going, and the mind is what creates all this static. So, but when you see things like that, remember intuition. I talk a lot about this in the book, some different ways things that you can use to identify intuition from non-intuition. So when you see something like that, it's really important to listen to your first impression. If you see something and your first impression is like, oh, that's fake, right? And then you start reading more and you kind of get sucked into it. Go back to that first impression, because remember, intuition sneaks in real quick before your mind has a chance to process and rationalize something. So one thing I would say is to pay attention to what's actually going on when you actually first see these things, and how you respond to it. Do you immediately resonate with it? Is it something like, oh my gosh, yes, this is so true, this feels right? Or is it something that a part of you knows, like you said, like that seems Photoshop, I question this, right? And then you have to really give that voice really some credence in your head. So those little first impressions and those sudden insights are really valuable nuggets from your intuition. Like they say, first impressions never lie.
Okay. Australian Ben asked this question: are indigo children predisposed to becoming master intuitives?
Well, I think that newer generations, and certain philosophies around the indigo children would say that they are born with a very open intuition. And I do believe that everyone has intuition, first of all. I just want to say every single person has it. So it's not something that only special people have. But I do believe that some people are born more open to it and can just naturally access it. So so if you're lucky enough to have a very vibrant and open intuition, then you're kind of have a head start with the rest of us who really have to work to develop it, like we would go to school and develop our mind. So it's just a part of our mind that we have to learn to train and listen and understand. So indigo children are often open the way, that people are just born with certain genius abilities or are super smart. So it's a wonderful thing to explore, and I think they have a lot of potential.
Some people claim there's a phenomenon called a sixth sense. Have you heard of it? And what would you think that would be?
So, people use that term a lot. And for me, I kind of define the sixth sense as really the overarching sort of intuitive connection with the world beyond. And I think that sort of so much falls underneath that. And I think it's really our ability, and really intuition is that ability. It's our ability to connect outside of these five senses, and outside of the walls of this three-dimensional reality that we live in. I mean, we know there's more to life. There's quantum realities, and there's multiple dimensional realities all around us, and our intuition has the ability to transcend those boundaries. And sort of that's where the sixth sense comes in, when we're able to perceive and experience these things that are extraordinary.
All right, if you're just joining us on the program tonight, we have Kim Chesley talking about Radical Intuition, a revolutionary guide to using your inner power. Well, Kim, that begs the question: does everybody have intuition?
Yeah, I always say everybody who's ever walked on the face of the earth and ever will has intuition. It's a natural part of our human design. It's a part of us that we have unfortunately been conditioned not to believe in or use as much as we have, because we have a huge potential within us, all of us, really waiting for us to develop and cultivate. And I say it's one of the biggest crimes against humanity is that we've been taught that we don't have intuition. Many of us we grew up. When we'd have intuitive experiences, people would say it's weird or not real or scary. So we really just haven't leaned into it in a way that the world has really requiring us to do now, because it's been centuries that we've lived in this world of the mind, but the future is intuition. And that's where we're really going to have to start thinking about cultivating this other side of our brain and the potential that it holds there.
In your book, you talk about the intersection of spirituality and cultural evolution, but scientists, by and large, ignore the spiritual component of anybody's life. Everything must be able to be duplicated to prove that it's even real. And those things that aren't seen aren't real. So it seems that they would judge the whole idea of intuition as well. There's probably a biochemical uh, with memory that a memory say like your intuition says don't go down this street, but you forgot that 20 years ago you went down and there was a car wreck or you seen something horrible, and so you think my intuition says that. They would discount that. How do you rebut questions like that from the scientific community that there is any such thing as intuition?
Yeah, and I do think that has been largely the traditional view for a long time. But now that quantum physics is becoming more of a reality, and people understand that there are these mysterious aspects of reality, and that the mind works in these ways that are unpredictable and seemingly impossible, I think that this conversation is starting to change. People now are giving things like intuition more credence. Scientists, technologists talk about intuition a lot. I've worked in technology for almost 20 years, and I've noticed over the last 10 years people start talking about intuition more and more. It's something that really super smart people right now are starting to get, and there's scientists out there that are starting to get it too. So I think those lines are starting to blur, and that old conversation of dismissing intuition in situations like that is no longer applicable, because we're starting to actually understand it in different ways, that it can no longer be dismissed. Because when we realize these things are happening, and it's happening to enough people, and it's actually starting to make sense scientifically, now we have to start paying attention to it.
All right, well said. Here's a great question. It says, is intuition spirit based or conscious based?
So I would say both. The way I like to break down intuition, which is a really pretty simple way of understanding it in terms of consciousness, is that I talk about in the book the three levels of intuitive consciousness, and that's unconsciousness, consciousness, and super consciousness. So most of us are walking through most of our days sort of in between these states of unconsciousness and consciousness. And when I say unconsciousness, I don't mean asleep necessarily. I mean sort of metaphorically asleep. Like, we're just not conscious of what we're doing. We're not unconscious of how we're interacting or evolving, or how our actions affect other people or the world, right? So becoming mindful, waking up, all those words that we hear, that's part of becoming conscious. So we start living more consciously, and we have presence, and we really pay attention to how our actions affect each other in the world. So the more we become conscious, the more we're able to sort of get into this state where we can touch into more and more our intuition. When we're in this unconscious state, it's hard for intuition, which lives in the superconscious state, to reach us. So things like that come out of the unconscious state are more like instincts, maybe dreams. That kind of intuition comes, that sort of unconscious intuition, things that we're not really aware of. But as we start to become conscious and wake up, we start to have these intuitive experiences from a place of higher consciousness. So that's the thing with intuition, and this is why it's so interesting with spirituality and our connection to God, or the universe, or source, whatever word you use for that. Intuition is a supremely conscious state. You are awake, you are aware, you're not asleep, you're not unconscious. It's something that happens to you, and you have full knowledge of your senses and your awareness of your reality and everything that's happening to you. So it comes from a place of beyond and above, not below.
Mm-hmm. I was just thinking, do dreams develop a movie of what our intuition is trying to tell us?
Yeah, I do think so. And I think, in that unconscious state, it allows us to like weave these intuitive, sometimes we get intuitive messages. Sometimes it helps us work through intuitive situations where we have to, deal with things or learn things in our life. So I always call dreams sort of backdoor intuition. It comes to us in this unconscious state, but it's not something that we're working with and awakened in our daily life. So it comes to us however it can reach us, and through our dreams. Yeah, I think it comes in through these metaphors. Intuition is very rich in the metaphor state. Any kind of symbols and all of that stuff from your, what is that? The left brain, the right brain, all of that stuff that is the natural language of that side of our hemisphere is very rich language that our intuition uses to communicate with us.
Okay. Put Yahweh first out of the live chat. That's really where most of our questions come, though we do have an email client too that is called Fast Blast. It says, are intuition and premonitions related?
Yeah, premonition's a type of intuition. So I talk in the book about the four types of intuition. Basically, it boils down to the four ways that our intuition can talk with us, the four pathways, which is through our bodies, minds, heart, and spirit. Simple, age-old formula of the four elements that we've known throughout humanity. Really the four elements of human existence. So telepathy, precognition, all of that stuff falls under this type of intuition of the mind, right? Where you just have knowings and abilities to know things, whether it's the future, whether it's something that's happening outside of this time or outside of this moment or in this place and space. So the mind, the intuition has access to all of that. It knows everything that's ever happened, will happen, is happening right now. And you have the ability to plug into that through your intuition, because everything's data. I mean, think about that. Back in the old days, that sounded crazy. It sounded like it would be completely impossible. But right now, now that we understand that the world is made full of data and information that exists and can't be destroyed, it makes sense that there's a part of us that can plug into that data and download it. So that's really how that all works with the mind and how we know things like that.
I was going to do a follow-up question on that question about sixth sense. I was going to say, is it the sixth sense that allows us to see dead people?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's also part of intuition. People that have that ability, mediumship and spirituality, and really, I don't look at dead people as dead people. I always talk about it as, people who are really just in another plane of existence. And
Yeah.
it really is, when we're talking about the multiverse, it's just not a non-physical reality.
Yeah.
And anybody who's, and been involved in situations like that understands that, people are very much alive. Death really isn't death. Death is just a change, and the consciousness still exists. So, and there are ways for people to connect, and it doesn't have to be scary and spooky.
Yeah.
It's just scary because we don't understand it.
Well, I don't mess with dead people. They typically have some hygiene problems, so I just leave the dead to themselves.
Exactly.
What about this? Azur says, "Do you believe in God?"
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. I believe in God. I believe in our creator. And I think that our intuition is our connection to God. That is what Paramahansa Yogananda's famous quote was, that intuition is the soul's power of knowing God. Call it the Holy Spirit. We have so many different words for intuition. The Pope calls it discernment. It's our ability to connect with that higher power that is within us. It's that pathway is our intuition.
I was reading some history about the Pilgrims and their relationship with the Indians, and the Pilgrims before, there were a lot of things that happened to the Indians were from people that were greedy, and but the Pilgrims had no intention of behaving that way. But they described the Indians having a knowledge of God or a knowledge of spirituality, though different from ours, but seems to be the same, maybe under a different name and guise. Something out there in the forest revealed to them that such a being exists. And so, I know scientists that say, hey, there ain't no such thing. Well, in my book, they'd live some pretty sad lives. All right, let's get some, and boring lives for that matter.
Exactly.
Let's get some more questions here. Put Yahweh First says, we're asking the comparison question, is intuition the same as common sense?
So I would, that's a good question. I would put common sense probably, I mean, that could go either way. It depends on what your definition of common sense is. So yes, intuition is that part of yourself that intrinsically knows right and wrong. It's the part that is, but it's very personal and subjective. Whereas common sense, if we're not careful, could fall into that conditioning category where there's something, well, everybody knows you shouldn't do that because everybody else is doing it. We have to be really careful that we're doing it for our own reasons and our own truth. But intuition does usually reaffirm our common sense in terms that our intuition wants us to do the right thing and to grow and be safe and to evolve into better human beings.
Well, I think we need a lot more evolving. I'm not evolutionist, but man, if people could evolve, if other people are evolutionists, man, please evolve into a decent person. We're waiting. All right, let's
evolve, transform, metaphorically, whatever.
Yeah, man. However people can do it, man. Let's. I'm.
Bro.
Is the radical intuition? Do you think that is a progressive step to help people shape their behaviors in a more positive way?
I absolutely do. And think about that we've all got so caught up in this sort of mind-made world where we're toxic thinking, we're on our phones all the time, we're so engrossed in this information culture that our intuition's what's calling us to step back and just reconnect with ourselves and life and our heart and all of those things that are really important to us, instead of living these sort of ghost lives out there on social media, which none of this stuff is real. I mean, even if it's just with our friends, just putting stuff out there, and instead of just getting caught up in all of that, just to step back
Mm-hmm.
and live a real life with real humans, right? And real experiences. That's what our intuition's calling us to do. And that's really a growth process. So it brings us back to, our own lives and ourselves.
Well, I may lose a few Facebook friends on this one, but my messenger gets filled with emergency videos. Watch now before it's taken down forever. I mean, I guess they don't have any, and each person thinks that they're, really getting to me because I'm kind of a face out there, kind of a persona or a show or however, and it's kind of like yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But I find that it's depressing. It's like, man, if I watched every video, I would just go hide under a desk somewhere and not come out. I mean, so I had to make the conscious decision to delete it. So people, if you're sending me videos, love you. I do love you. I appreciate you. But I ain't going to watch them, man,
right.
because it's not helping.
It's nothing personal, right? And
no.
That's the kind of thing that you have to do just for your own well-being. It's nothing personal against anyone. It's just that you have to make that decision that you're going to set boundaries for yourself, because you have to stay in a good place, and you don't know what you're going to end up getting into with half those videos,
Yeah. All right, here's this question for you. Is intuition a gut feeling or a knowing mind, or a combination of both?
It's both. It's both. And like back to those 4 types of intuition, you can have a feeling, you can actually have a gut feeling, a physical feeling, all kinds of physical feelings that your intuition can talk to you about. It can be an instant knowing, a sudden epiphany, or an insight, or a solution to a problem. And that's another type of intuition. And your feeling, it can be like a calling, or that you just have a passion for something, and you're meant to do something in the world. That's your intuition calling you to go out there and serve a purpose and do something better. And like we've been talking about, making this world better and making life better. Mm-hmm. That's a calling. That's a type of intuition. And then the 4th type of intuition is that sort of real spiritual connection that we've been talking about, that allows us to connect with that part of ourselves that's higher. So it's a little bit of all of those things, and it can manifest in each of us differently, because we're all unique human beings with different sort of makeups. So some people sense knowings, some people have gut feelings or hunches. Everybody experiences it differently.
Well, I'll just give a real life event on that. This week, I was talking with a friend of mine who's about my age, and another guy who's maybe about 20 years younger. And we had this piece of paper, and on this paper it had about 20 drawings, and each drawing represented a Christmas song. And so it'd be like it'd have a drawing of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and a bucket of red. Okay, that's Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. It had 3 kings walking, so you knew that was 3 kings. It had a couple bells, so you knew that was jingle bells. But there's 25 of them, but he couldn't get 3 of them. And I said, why is it you don't know these so obvious? There was a deck of cards in a hall, deck the halls,
Yeah.
And so I said to the gentleman that's about my age, his name's Avery, and I said, well, let's just sing him a couple songs. And so we're singing, Silent Night, just real quick, like one sentence, and then sing another one. I said, man, I don't know what kind of youth you had, but you missed out, man. If you don't know these songs, so the epiphany was, so I walked away from that wondering why he never heard any of these songs. I thought it was kind of sad. And I thought, well, there's a lot of sad people out here. Christmas is canceled in a lot of places. Nobody can go out caroling, or maybe they don't, they never done it. So I thought, I am going to create a virtual Christmas carol evening, which I am going to do this Thursday, first time ever, 8 o'clock. And I have karaoke queued up with the background music and scrolling words. But from that encounter, I don't know if it was an epiphany, or whether it was a hunch, or whether it was, whatever you might want to call it. But I just thought that's how that came. So was that intuition or a hunch, or what was it?
Yeah, it sounds a lot like intuition, because First of all, when you probably had a bright idea, those bright ideas, when even if it's a response to something you're experiencing, like, oh, I should do this. Oh, it made you think you should do something new. So you have that bright idea, which is intuition in itself, but then you feel called and moved to do something. And when anytime you feel moved or inspired,
Mm-hmm.
right, something that's like calling you, that's definitely something you need to listen to, because that's a part of yourself that's driving you and telling you, yeah, this is a good idea. Yeah, do this. Someone needs this. There's a reason for it. You can contribute somehow in some
Mm-hmm.
positive way. So
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely chalk that one up to intuition.
Mm. Yeah, and I agree because I thought about that. You know, it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of embarrassment, but hey, that's what I do on this show. The more I embarrass myself, the funner the show gets. So,
That's right.
people look for that. Like when I call a guest and they hang up on me or they don't answer, it's a lot of fun. It's a disaster, but it's fun. And so
Exactly.
so but I did think along those lines that somebody needs this. Somebody needs to step out, like we were talking a few minutes ago. Step back from the. Can I say crap? I'm not sure where I can go with words with you. Step away from the crap that's just hitting us, and just have some fun, lighten up, remember some old times. There's got to be some Christmas memories, and I'm sure people have them that are now pushed. They're being pushed back. Traditions and everything's been pushed back away, and the new thing is COVID shot or no COVID shot, vote or not vote, disaster or I mean, just on and on. So anyway, that's another rant. Let's get some more questions for you, Kim Chesney. Here we got this is from David Burnell. Are some curious about strengthening institution for profit in either stock market or sports gambling? I think what he's,
Yeah.
if I read that right, did you understand the question?
Yeah, like or do people use it to like gamble and make
Yeah.
intuition to make money and stuff like that? Yeah. So I get that joke a lot, like, oh my gosh, when I use my intuition, I'm going to go get rich. So here's the thing. So your intuition doesn't really care about you being rich. Your intuition cares about you growing as a person, expanding your consciousness, and waking up. So if money is something that's going to help you do that, then money will come to you, or your intuition will help bring money into your life. But if money's not a factor in that, then that's not going to be a factor in your intuition. So there's always going to be people out there that exploit things and want to exploit things and want to make money. But the reality is, it's a spiritual process. It's a personal process. It's a process of growth and development. And if you use it for those kind of things, there's a good chance that it won't even work, honestly, because you get too caught up in your head instead of your heart. And if you're not doing things wholeheartedly, your intuition just naturally doesn't work as well.
I don't know where you are in regards to health matters, but are you familiar with fluoride, I suppose?
Like in the water?
Yeah.
hmm
Okay. So do you take fluoridated products?
It's not, I have a well, so it hasn't been something that I have personally had to really deal with in my life, but I do understand that, some people have concerns about it.
For my research of it, which is really part of the genesis of this show back in 2004, when I found out, you know, I always saw on the back of toothpaste it said, if you ingest more than a pea size of this, call your poison center. It didn't say call your doctor. It didn't say drink some more water. It said call your poison center. And I always wondered why that was there, but I figured, hey, they know what's best, right? And so then I just casually researched it. I thought, what the hell? I'm never taking that again. But from my research, I found that fluoride was over infused in water in the concentration camps, in the gulags in Germany, in the concentration camps, and it made the prisoners more accepting or more docile to their surroundings. So I'm wondering if over ingestion of fluoride would reduce one's intuition.
That's a good question. And there's a lot of questions like that, and I actually was talking to my husband about that this morning. We were having a pretty deep conversation about things that would potentially get in the way of our intuition and that connection. And the things that actually prevent you from working with your intuition, being sick and being in that low vibration state of not being balanced physically, definitely interrupts your intuitive connection, just because you're tired and you're heavy and you're down here, so you can't reach that energy up there. So if this situation is affecting your health,
Hmm.
in a way that's not letting you be in that high vibration place, you're definitely not going to be able to get that kind of
Hmm.
clarity from your intuitive guidance.
Hmm. Well, I notice when I have a nice cold beer, sometimes my intuition goes way up. So I think I
Exactly.
need to drink
Other
more.
things take over at that point.
I ain't drinking. I'm just drunk. Um, but no, I feel like there's a lot of things that are taking us away from our intuition, from our innate spirituality, our compassion, and they're trying to change us into something else. And now, um, I think we have to really do life reviews of what we take in that's trying to take away that part of us. And I think there's a danger to the controllers because if more people say worked by their intuition rather than a set of rules and regulations that somebody developed, then they wouldn't be in control anymore. So they have no vested interest in us
Uh-huh.
becoming better humans. And if we become worse humans, then there's a whole industry designed to put us away, charge us, bill us, fine us. I mean, everybody's making money on our misery, Kim.
Exactly. And what do you think? Why do you think that the intuition has been suppressed all of these years? What do you think a country and a planet with people in tune with their intuition and their inner truth looks like? That can be a dangerous idea. People who are empowered, people who aren't easily led, people who can see through this BS, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that can be a very dangerous situation for control, for the people who are in
Mm-hmm.
control and in power. So
Mm-hmm.
it makes sense why it would be downplayed and why we would
Mm-hmm.
be conditioned to think it wasn't real,
Mm-hmm.
because once we realize that it is real and then we actually start using this, I mean, who knows what the potentials
Mm-hmm.
are.
I can give you a historical case of where religion did that. At some point, uh, Catholics would chain the Bible to the altar and they'd have it in Latin, so that
Mm-hmm.
the average person couldn't go and read the words, and so they had to assume that what the priest was telling them was the truth. And that, man, you talk about kind of controlling people that way. I'm going to shoot a question out to the people watching the program in the live chat. And the question is, everybody watching, have you used your intuition and has it saved you, helped you, or hurt you? So just simple yes or no ever. So hopefully we'll see what people start putting in from that right there. All right.
Right.
So while that's happening, let's go to another question. It says, what is something that you would like to tell us in your experience that most people do not know?
Oh my.
You're not
Oh,
on the you're not on the spot at all.
that doesn't put me on the spot. Oh my gosh, there's just so much. So intuition related, I think part of it is, is it a story? Is it something about intuition? There's just so much with intuition. I think that there's this whole kind of new frontier out there that we're just starting to wrap our brains around. And I think if we really open up to intuition and realize that there are things in our senses, in our thoughts, and our feelings that we're capable of experiencing, knowing about the world, that really opens up a whole new way of viewing reality and really transcending a lot of this muck that we get stuck in every day. So I really encourage people to, take a chance on your wisdom. Don't take it from me. The book if you read Radical Intuition, it's a book that will help you actually develop your own intuition. It's not just, don't listen to me talk
Mm-hmm.
about it. It's like a workbook. It's
Mm-hmm.
a doing book. So if you
Right.
get out there and do it, you can develop it.
Mm-hmm. And that's another thing I like about that book. You have like a workbook in there. You fill in the blanks. So
Yeah.
and I thought that was great. Let's just go ahead and look at the live chat here and see who answered the question. Now, so the question is, has intuition helped you? And Azur says yes. Don says yes. Max says sad. Not sure they say yes or no. Jade, our moderator, says yes, helped. Scotty says yes. David Brunel, yes. Priscilla says yes, saved me all the time.
Awesome.
Australian Ben says yes. And then we've got Put Yahweh First says yes. So looks like a whole lot of people have had intuition
See?
or has
Yeah.
played a role in their life.
I think so many people have, and that's why I felt so passionate about writing this book, is I feel like we've all had those experiences, even if it's just been those little, blips here and there throughout our life where intuition has popped in and told us something about like a person that's no good for us, or just told us something that saved us from harm or like getting into a bad situation. And there's just been those little moments, and we realize that there's something there, but we don't know how to integrate it into our life, and we
Mm-hmm.
don't know how to get more of it, which is all things we want to do. And the reality is that we can do both. The more you pay attention to your intuition and start to learn about it and discover it, the more those things start to happen. And they start to happen all the time, so much that it just becomes like everyday stuff, an everyday occurrence.
Mm-hmm. I've used a story that the people have heard. I want to roll it out on you on this. So I'm driving down the highway, and I'm talking to my wife Susan, and I'm telling her about two specific albums, the Sergeant Pepper album and Creedence Clearwater Revival, and I don't know, just idle talk, covering the highway time. So we pull into a gas station, and we go to the restroom there, and right by there's one of those spinner things you can spin around. They had albums on them. Well, I went right up to it, and right there were two albums. The Sergeant Pepper album. In front of that was the CCR album. Now, did intuition lead me to a synchronistic development, or was it synchronicity that led me to intuition, or were they the same?
Yeah, and in the timeless world of intuition, it's hard to say chicken and the egg, but it 100% is that connection. And I love these kinds of stories because synchronicity is so deeply connected with our intuition. Because when we get into those moments of synchronicity, it's really those moments of our higher consciousness and this reality connecting and becoming one. And that's this place we want to start living from. We want more synchronicity. We want more of those occurrences in our life. So
Mm-hmm.
the more you notice those little things, they usually coincide with your intuition developing and growing and opening up all these things. So,
Mm-hmm.
and also it's interesting to remember that intuition's about attention, right? So think of all those little coincidences in terms of attention. Like something made you think of those two albums when you were talking about it. First of all, something might have popped in your head. Something made you think about that to begin with. And then when you went into the store, you could have gone anywhere when you
Right.
went to the store, right?
Mm-hmm.
But something in you guided you over there. You went to it, and it was like the first thing you looked at or whatever. So it drew your attention to it. So
Yeah.
we think of that. Like you hear people talk about their like angel numbers, and they always look at the clock at like 11:11 every day or something.
Mm-hmm.
That's attention, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not that's that your attention's being called there by your intuition. So it works on so many levels, and that's a really fun aspect of intuition.
Yeah. I would say if somebody doesn't pay attention to their intuition, they could have a bad moon rising.
That's right. See if we have that song coming up anywhere.
All right, it just may be, and that's
I
so.
love that song, by the way.
There's a lot of things like that, and that's what I kind of felt like if you, and I tell people that if you just pay attention to that, you may have those kind of events happen at a Walmart of all places. It could be anywhere. I think there's a lot of signposts and a lot of activity going on. And then that's why I said earlier, it's exciting. It's exciting life when you start to think about it. So I kind of mold that all in with intuition and uh, gut feelings and this kind of thing. But so how can we increase our intuition?
So the first thing I say, and first of all, I just remind everybody, it's something that we can all develop and work with, just like anything else, like a talent. We can work with it and open it up to it. But the first thing we have to do if we want to start using our intuition is slow down. We have to pull back from the mind. When our minds, we're running around like chickens with our heads cut off, with our thoughts going a mile a minute, we create a kind of static where our intuition can't get through. And that's one of the reasons why so many of us just don't hear our intuition, is because our minds are constantly racing. We can't listen to that little moment of intuitive insight when we're constantly figuring things out. Like, oh my gosh, what should I do? Making these pros and cons of lists. So slowing down, just relaxing, open up the mind, because our intuition, it comes in a flash. It's so easy to receive your intuition. It just pops into your head. It's like this idea or insight feeling just comes to you out of nowhere. So really, we just have to open up and let our intuition come to us. So part of it, the most important first step, is making more space for that to happen.
President Lincoln, before he was shot, him and his wife Mary went to Ford Theater to watch a movie. John Wilkes Booth was skulking around in the background of that building. He got past security because he actually was an actor at Ford's Theater before, so they knew who he was. He was able to get into that. In fact, it is said that he shot him at a part of the movie or part of the play where it was a funny line.
Hmm.
and he knew the people would erupt, and that's when he fired a shot. Is it possible that if is it possible in such a traumatic event of history that Abraham Lincoln knew about it but didn't pay attention to his intuition?
Yeah, I mean that would be something to know what was really going on the inside. I mean, it could have been he had an intuition and didn't follow it, or it could have been that it was meant to be. I've heard that he's had a premonition, that he knew, like he had a dream, or he
Mm-hmm.
had a premonition of it happening, and maybe it had to happen. I think that's part of the trust that we have to get into when we get into that space of intuition, is trusting that things, may not come out the way we expect, but that they're the way that life needs it to happen for whatever reason. So,
Mm-hmm.
either way, I think, understanding that, I mean, think about the change and the impact that had on our country. And so, it's an interesting conversation around intuition.
Mm-hmm. All right. Ray asks, says, Kim, can you use intuition to decipher the past?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, your intuition works in all directions. You can use it to really touch in with the future, the present moment, or the past. And particularly, it's useful with our own and healing, and gaining a higher perspective on our own experiences and why the horrible things that happen in this world actually happen, and the meaning behind it all. And in particularly with healing, a lot of the issues that we have, chronic issues in our life, have really deep roots in our past experiences, and the pain that we've held on to, and the way we haven't processed some of the emotions and the thoughts that are connected to them. So tapping into our intuition is so helpful and beneficial when it comes to healing, and body, mind, and spirit all the way
Mm-hmm.
around.
Um, we do talk about sort of euphemistically women's intuition, and guys get hunches. But now, from a guy perspective, you might confirm. I don't know if your husband's this way, but us guys, a lot of times we're stubborn. For instance, we'll put a ladder in the back of a pickup truck to get higher up. Things that don't make sense, that are dangerous, and we sort of know that intrinsically, but we got certain pride about the thing that we're going to tackle this thing, and then we may fail. We actually may fail. But women seem to have a better thing saying that doesn't look right. I don't think that's the way you should go. So why? So would we say then, because of that men are suppressing their intuition?
Oh my gosh, I really honestly think that, whether you call it a hunch or women's intuitions, I think that we're really essentially saying two ways of saying the same things. I just think that, guys can be more adventurous and are willing to take more risks. So actually it could be, and sometimes you might actually be using your intuition, because even though it seems reckless and dangerous, if there might be a part of you that knows that you're going to pull it off, so you might do that crazy thing
Yeah.
and not fall down and break your neck, because
Mm-hmm.
you have a hunch that you can actually pull this off, because part of intuition is getting out of our comfort zone and taking chances. So that hunch aspect, and that kind of that recklessness, it's a fine line. We have to be really careful. We want to get out of our comfort zone. We just don't want to get too far out of our comfort zone.
Well, I know what you're saying about we feel like it just might work.
Yeah.
One time I threw campfire fuel on some wet leaves and it blew up, and about I almost got killed. So I would say that didn't
That
work.
wasn't that particular moment.
I wasn't successful in that. So, but other ways I have. All right. The Australian Ben says, is meditation a method of enhancing one's intuition?
Yes, definitely. And, back to what I was saying a minute ago about, creating more space for your intuitive thoughts and insights to come. Meditation is one of the best ways to do that. Not everybody likes to meditate, so you don't have to meditate. You could just go for a walk or a run or take a shower. How many times you've had like a really great thought pop in your head while you're taking a shower in the morning? Just because those are these places where you get into this state where your mind's relaxed and these ideas and insights can come. But meditation, making that intention and setting that ritual in your life to meditate on a regular basis is wonderful for your intuition.
Mm-hmm.
It's really creates a canvas where your intuition can come and give you those insights.
Could we hear our own intuition? Does it come when we talk to ourselves?
I think it's exactly like talking to yourself. It's like having a strong intuition is like having a strong relationship with your quote unquote higher self. And I always say, it's when you're alone and you're working with your intuition, it's not like you're alone. You're with yourself, but you're with this part of yourself, this higher knowing part of yourself, this part of yourself that can see beyond the place that this small self that we're working with can see every day. So it's very much like having a conversation with yourself, like a wiser part of yourself.
Speaking of wires, I was looking at your the contents in your book, and it says mindful intuition, your inner wisdom. Um, I guess that goes with intuition itself, but some people seem like they don't have any wisdom at all. Is it because they've canceled out their intuition?
So I think it's back to that those three levels of consciousness. Some people are just living in this unconscious state. And I've known a lot of really smart people that are very unconscious and just don't really like know how to even relate to human beings or be a decent human being or have empathy, like all of these things that once you become conscious and awakened, you have more of. So I think that this mass unconsciousness that we deal with in the world today is really symptomatic of this being cut off from our intuition and our higher selves.
Mm-hmm. If somebody is not physically fit, does that affect their intuition?
Absolutely, absolutely does. Because mostly just because I think intuition is vibrational. If we're going to talk about science and physics, and that kind of information is a higher vibration, higher energy sort of frequency. You have to tune your radio to a higher frequency to get intuitive information. And when you're feeling down and low and sick, or out of shape, but out of shape in a way that it's unhealthy, right?
Okay.
It's okay to be a little out of shape if that's we don't have to be all perfectly physically fit, but if it's in a way that we're not healthy and it's bringing us down and make us not feel good, then that does impact our intuition. We want to be healthy. We want to feel good, because when we feel good, it's easier for us to tap into our intuition.
So if we start, if we determine within ourselves to use our intuition, should we risk failure?
Yeah, that's it. Getting out of the comfort zone. Yeah, I talk in the book a lot about failing forward. And the good thing about intuition is that the more you listen to it, and the more that clarity you have, and you're sure you're following it, the less likely you're gonna have to fail, because our intuition, it wants to take us on the shortest direct path to our success and all of the things that are going to help us grow and expand our awareness. But we don't always listen to our intuition. It's we sometimes we want to do our own thing. Sometimes we're not even sure it's our intuition. There's still a lot of confusion. So we have to fail forward. We take those small steps, and then we course correct. We take another back forward, course correct, but we're still getting there either way. The intuition will just help us to get there the easy way instead of the hard way.
Well, I like that way. Just somebody said, kind of a wisdom statement said, it's great to learn by your mistakes, but it's better to learn by the mistakes of others.
Indeed.
That way you can shortcut some of the massive failures, because somebody else already did it.
Exactly.
This question here says, what if you have a really bad intuitioner? I guess what they're saying, if their intuition isn't working, I guess.
So if you feel like you don't have any intuition, which was the case of my husband, when I met him, he's like, I don't have any intuition. And now he was like my hardest student. Anytime I went to practice, I tested on him because he had no intuition. But he realized, and I realized it too, like he's a tech guy, I was in the Army, and he has the best intuition now. So I think even if you think you don't have intuition, it's really just a matter of, maybe we just haven't gotten it up and running. Maybe you're just not aware of the ways that it's working with you, because everybody has a different type of intuition. Maybe your intuition is different than what you hear a lot of people talking about. So, in the book, you can take that little quiz I have, talks about the different types of intuitions and see which one you're aligned with. But everybody has it. It just really is a matter of giving it a little time and attention.
All right. We have this question here. Rapid Fire says, Kim, what does your intuition tell you about 12/21?
2021, is that what they're trying to like the new year?
I may rephrase that. Just what does your intuition tell you about the year 2021?
Yeah, everyone's asking me that. It seems to be like the number one question. I know it's on a lot of our minds right now because of all the changes that we're going through. But for me, my intuitive feelings about, the directions that we're heading and the things that we've been going through over the past year is that that, these are growing pains, and this is a time where there's a lot of suffering, and, maybe we didn't follow our intuition as a world for a while, and in fact, we know we didn't. So we had some missteps, and this is a course correction, and hopefully this is a failing forward, and hopefully we'll learn a few things about ourselves and wake up. For me, I really think it's a huge wake up call. I think but I think it's worked in a lot of ways. I feel like there has been a lot more awareness that's happened over the last year, and a lot of us are really paying attention now. I mean, we weren't paying attention. A lot of us were just living our lives, on our social media, on our Instagram pictures, and this and that, keeping up with the Joneses. But now there's a real sense in many people of really
Mm-hmm.
of this awakened sense of a depth of life and meaning
Mm-hmm.
that we really didn't talk about a year ago. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a growing pains, and I do think that there is hope, and I think that this is a process that someday we're going to look back on and be like, wow, that really stunk, that was horrible, but the world's a little better for it, and there's a lot of positive opportunity that can come.
Well, I rephrased that question to the year 2021. The viewer was actually being specific about December 21st,
Oh,
which
the alignment.
yeah.
Well,
How about
I'm
that?
excited about that. As someone I've studied astronomy and astrology my whole life. I have some thoughts about really the importance of happening at this moment. I think that this is one of the biggest conjunctions between two of the most important planets in our solar system, um, and I think that it's really, if you look at the message that's being sent metaphorically with these two planets, it's that it really is an awakening, but an awakening through suffering. Saturn isn't an easy planet to have around, but Jupiter is growth and all of these wonderful things that we really need in expansiveness. So together, I think that, yeah, that they do offer hope.
Mm. All right. Well, I'm all for hope. Um, so, what when if somebody gets your book and they use and that's a that's why part I love about your book is the workbook part of it. If they go through that workbook part of it and read this to the end, do you expect that they would be a different person? If somebody replied back to you and say, "Kim, man, this really got me going in the right direction."
Yeah, I mean, I've been teaching this, the work in the book actually came out of the online school that I have, that I've been teaching for the past 3 years, IntuitionLab, where I've been teaching this work. And it is amazing, the feedback from students and from the people that I work with, and the changes, the life changes that I see in the people that go through this, because there's really this sense of reconnection with who they really are. And I think that is such an important thing. When you find that, you can't live the same life anymore. And I think this book really helps people to make that connection, and also give them the strength and confidence to go out and act on it and do something about it.
Mm-hmm. Now, imagine a lot of people have expressed foreboding about 2021. I guess building on the ruins of 2020.
Mhm.
I would like to think there's a realignment for the positive, but and the positive the person I am, I'm not really seeing it. But I'm also hopeful at the same time that things can change for the better really quickly. So I guess from a mass population standpoint, we all need to sort of evaluate our projection of our lives in relationship to others. But it's going to take a lot to do that. So, kind of on a countrywide scale, I mean, your book will help those that get the book, I suppose, and take your Intuition Lab class. But for the majorities, they're probably not going to do that. So, is a small faction going to start advancing things for us?
Well, I think it's so important for everybody to start where they are and take those small steps in their own life, in their own community, in the ways that we can impact, for, like, just like you're doing, and touching the people that you can touch that are out there, and to be that voice of presence and that voice of growth and change and holding the line. And I know that means different things for different people, and that's okay. because, I say everybody has a different place in the journey because we're all in different places on the journey. So it's important for us to respect each other's different opinions in different places, because we're all moving to the same place. We're all just at different places on the journey. So, it might be a hard time. I think the good news, though, with this alignment is this alignment that's happening, this conjunction really it's in astrology signifies like a peak point, the punctuation mark. So I'm personally hoping that this time right now, this is it. I mean, the pandemic's at its worst. It's going nuts right now, where the political situation in America is not great right now. So everything's coming to a head. So I'm hoping that, that the tides will start to sort of in one way or the other sort of move into a direction that is more conducive to an easier path for us.
Going back to my research of the Pilgrims, I did that because 1620 and in 2020 is 400th anniversary of that. So I wanted to go back and reread it. I've been reading William Bradford's Pilgrim Plantation and various reports on the early Americans. But the Pilgrims, when they got within eyesight of shore after a 65-day journey, on board was mandated by the people that financed that journey were not pilgrims. The pilgrims referred to them as strangers. They were about to embark in a land that they knew from their standpoint was filled with savages and danger, and there was nothing there for them but wilderness in the freezing cold winter in the wrong time of the year. But they realized that, and they called those people strangers, but they realized they had to get along with them, or they would be destroyed. If they didn't have the connection with them as a relationship, then they would easily be destroyed when they hit land. So they made the Magna Carta, or the Mayflower Compact was signed right then. But it was that they knew they were going to be in the same space, and they needed each other, even though they had opposite beliefs. That's kind of where we are now. America, the right needs the left, and the left needs the right. Let's put it that way. And how we're going to, like you say, which way that can go, that's where we are right now. We're at that Y right now. And so there's foreboding probably foreboding on all sides. But I think that point of view that maybe we need another Magna Carta. We need to say, okay, we're here. Neither side's going anywhere. Why can't we make this work? But it goes back to what we said in the first hour. There's the control of billions of dollars of assets and fund directing at stake. And it's clouding the minds of everybody that's in power. So everybody wants to control that. And so the rest of us are out here. That's why we don't have a COVID bailout now, and the businesses are going out of business because they're fighting. These people we have nothing to do with are fighting over there. They won't come to that conclusion. We need each other for the betterment of the country.
I just want to say I love that analogy. I'm probably going to use that. I love that analogy, and I think that that's absolutely right and so true, and it really resonates with me on so many levels. Because in the end, the truth stands for itself. Whether those pilgrims or those strangers, they were both on their own missions and their own callings and just living side by side. And I think in America right now, some of the things we're experiencing, it's very similar. People are on different paths and have different understandings of the world. But we're all, like I said earlier, we're all on our own process of development. We're all on our own journey. So let's just live side by side and hope that we can come together and work together to find some sort of common ground. Because really, we are all underneath it all. We're all one, and we're all going to the same place. We're just in different places on the journey.
And we all got to go to the same Walmart.
Exactly, literally going to the same place.
But no, it is that if we don't get a Mayflower Compact type agreement, we're going to end up destroying ourselves. Nobody wants that. I can't believe. I refuse to believe people want that.
Right. Exactly.
But Vinvika Amato has this question, or Viveka. It says, could it be that if we draw closer to God, we get more sensitive to the inner voice of God rather than, say, an intuition, or is it the same?
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. You can keep saying it. I was just like, yes, absolutely. I think that when you get close to God and you are in that state of connection, and you know how that feels when you're having those moments and you're deep in prayer, you're feeling that connection. That's how the intuitive connection feels. It's all one. So you definitely have this sensitivity, and great teachers throughout history have talked about intuition in this highest sense being a byproduct of our spiritual growth and our spiritual evolution. Not the kind of intuition we see on TV with crystal balls and
Hmm.
tarot card stuff, but an open sensitivity and intuition and empathy and inspiration, and all of those things become so much more rich in our life when we have that connection to God.
Hmm. Um, Animals have sort of a sixth sense or some kind of sense danger. Um, it was freaky. So last night I was with my brother. We were just chatting, and his dog just goes running to the window, barking like crazy. I said, "What the heck?" And so see now. They might know that something that I don't know, but anytime I see an animal react like that, I always think that that animal knows something because I didn't hear any noise and it was late at night. But now I'm kind of a spiritual person, so I'm not automatically thinking it's somebody outside. I'm thinking it's something, So, but but it is proven that that animals seem to have an awareness, and then children have a certain awareness until we talk them out of it.
Uh-huh.
So is it that we need to go back to that childlike belief that there are things around us unseen, and that if we pay attention, we can see the movements or the effects of their presence?
Yeah, and I think if you talk to children, you'll and listen to the things they say. They'll talk about. Actually, my niece was talking about something this just a few weeks ago about the different that she would see beings, and but she's not afraid of them. It's not like she thinks they're scary. It's just part of the reality that she sees, and we're just taught to ignore that and push it away. And I really think when we're young and we're new, we still are able to sense the other world a little bit, where we came from. There's still that time, but we're taught to fear it, we're taught to ignore it, and we're taught to shut it out. So we don't have it anymore. Animals still have it. How many? I can't tell you how many times my dog will be sitting by the door waiting for my husband to get home, like half an hour before he gets home. Like, it's not like he could have heard him coming home. He just has to have that connection. He knows he's coming home. So it's there, and we've just pushed it down and repressed it. So
Mm-hmm.
we can be a little more childlike. We can be a little bit more of a return to our natural sort of state. But at the same time, what's exceptional about human beings is that as we grow up, we get really smart. It's not just reverting to that
Mm-hmm.
childlike wonder. It's integrating that childlike wonder with our really smart minds and our intelligent minds. So then we have this ability to do something that no other species has ever done before.
Uh, in uh, in our conversation, work up to this interview, you told me you have a certain grandma. What's the grandma's name?
Her name was Vesta Ott.
Vesta Ott.
Yes.
Okay. When your publisher first sent you an email, somebody would like to have you come on the show, and you saw that name. Did your spiritual intuition buzz?
Oh my gosh. And it's so funny that you brought that up, because yeah, it 100% did. It 100% did. And this is just a funny little, we talk about synchronicity, right? So she was my grandma when I was very, very little. She's actually my great grandmother. And she used to babysit me, and she passed away when I was in like third grade. And she used to make me two of my favorite dishes that she would make me snacks. She'd make me ring bologna, and she'd make me onion vinegar salad. Those were the
Oh,
two little things she would make. I loved them. They always reminded me. And sure enough, I looked down tonight, and my husband had made dinner, and he had brought home both of those things tonight, and we ate them for dinner. And I haven't eaten them probably in like 10 years.
no way.
And I said, that's synchronicity.
Wow. Yeah,
So
I would say, wow, that's kind of stuff I look for. Um,
exactly. So we have some good art synchronicity going on.
now see,
Hey, do you have any family in central Pennsylvania?
no, but my wife has family over there. But see, anytime I see that name, I'm thinking, hey, I wonder if they owe me money. That's just
Never know.
that's weird. That's where my mind goes. Here's a great question though, and I'm sure you got this question: is the pineal gland have anything to do with intuition?
I do think it's so. And I'm not a scientist, so I'm not going to pretend to understand how all that stuff works, but I do feel that there is something because a lot of times people will talk about, having experiences with this sort of third eye or having sensations in this part of their minds and actually even in on their skin and in their it's part of their forehead, physical sensations. So I definitely think that there is a body mind connection that has to do with this particular area and the hormones that are around that. So I think that I don't know, it's a chicken and the egg situation. Does one affect the other? But it'd be an interesting study to do to monitor intuitive development and the effects and changes that might happen in that pineal gland.
Um, have you? Is there a moment in your life where intuition really worked for you? You can say, "Well, that was it." You point right to it and said that was it.
Oh my gosh, so many, like a million things. Like, and you get to a point where it's happened so much. I can tell you, if we have a minute, I can tell you a
Yeah,
funny story
go ahead.
about how it all, yeah. So one of my favorite stories to tell of when I started out on this intuition journey, when I was younger, I was in college and I was living in England at the time, and I went to see a gypsy, and it was at something called the Hull Fair, which is the largest traveling carnival in England. It's from like the 1600s, and there was the granddaughter of Gypsy Rosalie there, and she read my palms. I was just a kid, I didn't know, and she told me that, and she saw me in 1994 in a foreign courtroom, and it would be really stressful, but I'd be doing a good deed. And I was like, okay. My friends and I were like, well, that was strangely specific. Like, we never heard of gypsies giving dates. So of course I wrote it down in my journal. I like have everything dated. I'm like, I'm writing this down, and I'll never forget. That was in 1991 when she told me that. I'll never forget in 1993 when I went and got the mail, and I got a jury summons in my mailbox, and I had this intuitive moment, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's it. I'm going to be on this jury, and I just knew it. And sure enough, didn't I in 1994 end up on a federal jury, sequestered for 2 weeks?
Wow.
So, yeah, so that's what made me realize people can see the future. Like, that was the only takeaway that I took from that. I was a young kid and I thought, okay, it's possible for people to know the future. And if she can do it, why can't I do it? Why can't you do it? It's obviously something humans can do. So let's explore that. So that's one of the things that really early on really fueled me wanting to understand and sort of hack intuition and really understand how we can all use it more.
Mm. Well, I wonder if we could go back in time because I'm still wondering how the pyramids were built.
Me too.
I guess it can, so. Is that the thing? We can only go forward. We can't go backward.
Oh yeah, you can go
Oh,
backwards for
okay.
sure.
Okay,
I mean, you
I'm
can
going
go.
back.
Your intuition can go anywhere, and there's some things that are mysteries just because we're not meant to know the answer. Sometimes you can get intuitive blocks that we're just not. Our intuition's like get a stop sign. Like, no, it's just not going to go there. I don't know. Then some other, maybe some people have different intuitive pathways that can give them information about things that we
Mm-hmm.
can't. So it's very specific, and ultimately the answer is we'll be able to know what we're meant to know.
Uh, you mentioned ever so quickly and subtly that there are things we have to learn. How does that fit in?
Well, I think that part of the expansion of consciousness really comes from the lessons that we learn in this life and our ability to
You,
relate to the world in
yeah,
bigger
you said
ways.
you said we have to learn. They're like we're assigned to learn. That's what I interpreted it.
Well, I think that I do feel like each of us on our own path. If we want to get to that next level, we have to conquer what's right in front of us, and we do
Mm-hmm.
have lessons that we may not want to learn, but we have. If we don't learn them, we're not going to get where we need to go.
Mm-hmm. 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 I try to. Somebody mentioned meditation earlier. I have, like most people, mine's going 100 miles an hour all the time, and I thought, I'm gonna just shut it off. I want to just shut off, just maybe just hear God's voice or something or anything, and I don't get 10 seconds, maybe five. How's that happen? How am I ever going to get to clearance where I can get to that point?
Well, you just start small. I mean, you can't go into it expecting to have a long period of time because it does get easier with time and it does open up more and more with time. So I just say, give yourself small little moments. And instead of going into a deep meditation, just start with being still and being present.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you're standing in line at Walmart, just instead of waiting, right? Instead of, oh, gotta go, hurry up.
Mm-hmm.
Just take that as a little mini meditation and just be still
Mm-hmm.
and be in the moment
Mm-hmm.
and touch into it. Because if you go into that moment, you can feel the energy of life there. You can touch God at any moment if you're just still and you
Mm-hmm.
just move into that place of existence and being.
Well, see, that is the biblical precedence. It says, "Be still and know that I am God." So I'm thinking, man, if I don't still down, I may not know what I'm supposed to know. So I mean, there is a precedence for that. Let's get to another question here. It says, when getting in touch or communicating with your intuition, does it ever turn into a separate entity, or can it take on a personality of itself?
Yeah, absolutely. And you do have to be careful with your intuition. When we were talking about entities and ghosts and spirits, right? You do have to be very careful because that's not something we want to do. We don't want to talk to ghosts. We don't want to talk to spirits because unless you're a professional and you know what you're doing, you just don't want to do that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, if you're in meditation or you're really talking to yourself with your inner guidance, it's very common for intuition to sort of visually take form, and it can take the form of Jesus or a mentor or a teacher or a voice or a person that you trust, just to help to convey a message metaphorically. So it's very common for that to happen. So as long as you're in a place of high vibration and it feels good and safe, then that's totally a
Mm-hmm.
normal way for your
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
intuition to work.
So we're watching Finding Bigfoot. It's a series on Amazon. Highly recommend. A lot of fun because they have fun chasing him. But one of the Bigfoot hunters says that he practices his Bigfoot calls in the shower. And I know other people said they have epiphanies or they have brainstorms in the shower. So is the shower basically a warm vibrational area where you're comforted, and therefore that releases your inner intuition to think of greater ideas, release greater things in your life?
Yeah, I think a lot of different things happen with this whole. It all adds up to something good being in the shower because first of all, just being water is it conducts energy and electricity, so it's a very natural state being in the water, and the warmth and the comfort helps us to relax our minds, release stress, turn off that sort of crazy monkey mind, right? So that we can calm down. So we just get into this place where we zone out a little bit. And when we can do that, that's when we open up for our insight. So I think it really does sort of create this natural playground for your intuition.
Mm-hmm. Well, interestingly, you said monkey mind. A question came in from Scott Richardson, says, if the 100 monkey effect can affect the collective consciousness, would you agree it directs or steers our intuition?
Yeah, okay. I was just laughing a little bit about the God wink there, so that was good. We got some monkey things. So say that again. If the 100 monkey thing, what was
Yeah,
the rest of it?
if the 100 monkey effect can affect the collective consciousness, would you agree it directs our intuition?
So that it really is an interesting discussion around the collective consciousness and the distinction between like even going into like hive mind or even the 100 monkey thing. So we are all connected, right? So I do think that there is that sort of potential, that's definitely for that sort of potential. But really, intuition is such a personal process. I really feel that in my own experience with it, the breakthroughs that I've had through intuition, it's not just like a signal that's just going to open up from the outside world and suddenly you can do it. It's something you have to work at from the inside. So you have to release your fears. You have to move into a state of trust. You have to have more empathy. All of these things are personal growth things that open us up and sort of tune our antenna for intuition when we do that. So as long as we're doing those things, in tandem to the other things around, they can affect it or help it or create a better environment for it. But really, the true process of intuitive development is something that really we drive personally within us.
Well, I feel like I'm late to the party here. What is the 100 monkey thing? I mean, the only thing I know about monkeys is they freak me out. I
So
don't
from
like
what
them.
I feel the same way. I'm not crazy about monkeys. Anybody who knows me, I've seen too many stories of them eating people's faces. I'm just saying. um, so I'm with you, but I think it's with the 100 monkey is when, like, from what I understand, it is just that you get to a certain point. 100 monkeys know, then it becomes like sort of a collective unconscious thing, and then more monkeys start doing it, right? So it just sort of is something that we, after a certain density, we all kind of get a herd mentality going on. So and tying that into like the hive mind, where and I think about that a lot with intuition, with the hive mind. Like, we want to be all connected, but we don't want to be like the Borg. We don't want to all just be like one mind, right? We want to have our own individuality, and that's what's so beautiful about this life, is that when we have this opportunity for individuality, we just want to also not forget that we're also connected and one underneath
Hmm.
it all.
It's called pithicophobia, the fear of monkeys. So
There we go.
whatever
That's
that
it.
is, I guess I got to use,
Phobia.
I got to use my intuition, get rid of that thing, get rid of that fear. I guess I got to go to the zoo and feed them. I don't know. I got to overcome that fear. But
I'm sure there's some really nice monkeys around out there.
well, and then coming into this Christmas season, I got another phobia. I don't know what it is, but I got a fear of nutcrackers because I feel like those things, got those wood teeth. I think they get up and walk at night. I don't know.
You probably saw the ballet when
Well,
you were young.
all right. Do messenger angels supply us with intuition?
I think that angels communicate with us with intuition. I always say that intuition is the universal language. And that's why I would say, when you develop your intuition, you're investing in something that it's one of the few things you can take with you after you leave this world. Because intuition, whether we're talking about angels or any other kind of beings that are non-physical beings, aliens, whatever you want to think about in this universe, living conscious beings connect and communicate through intuition. So it's a language that any living being can use, whether it's our dogs or our animals. There's a connection with life there. So absolutely.
Hmm. Okay. Um, do alcohol and drugs mess with your intuitions and maybe direct you to unreal deductions or take them away from you?
Yeah, not great. Neither of those things are great for your intuition. Just because alcohol really will, and drugs both, um, can have different effects of taking you more into that unconscious state instead of the superconscious state. Even though things like, people will enjoy marijuana and have like transcendental sort of experiences or spiritual experiences, you're still operating from that unconscious sort of state. So the thing with intuition is, we want to get higher conscious, more conscious,
Mhm.
super conscious. So alcohol and drugs are, in my opinion, in my experience, are generally not beneficial.
All right. Azur says, Kim, how do you differentiate between concise and spirit messages in your head?
I'm not sure what they mean by concise message. Like real? Do you mean like spirit messages and like thoughts maybe?
Well, going to have to clarify that. Well, if we get clarification on that, then let's go to this question here. Um, I don't know how it relates to the show, but it says, do you believe in aliens? And are they spiritual entities or interdimensional beings?
um, so I
What does your
love.
intuition tell you about aliens? I guess that's a word
Yeah,
that's how we'll.
I think that I'm pretty confident in the fact that there is, that we're not all there is in terms of life. There's all kinds of life out there. There's interdimensional life. There is trans-physical life. I think we're going to start finding out more and more that there is so much more life and life forms than what we've been able to understand and really consciously address throughout history. And I love the show Ancient Aliens. I'm addicted to it. I think that it's such an interesting way of understanding our history. And I think there's a huge, real potential of really opening up a different understanding of our own history and our own future, looking at the world that way.
Yeah, we had Giorgio Tertulio on the show, and
Nice.
he wouldn't give me one of them pens.
Oh, I love the pin.
And I said, "Well, you're not getting my hat, so we'll just call it even." Of course, and I said, "How about the hair? Give me the hair. I want the hair."
But you're both so smartly dressed.
Yeah.
So
Oh, there you go. All right, so we're going to head into a new ability to be more sensitive, I guess. Could we say that too? Isn't intuition actually being more sensitive to your surroundings or what's happening?
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. It really can be understood that way because we're sensitive physically, we're sensitive emotionally, we're sensitive mentally,
Mm-hmm.
even to those little thoughts and ideas that slip by us when we're not in that intuitive state.
Mm-hmm.
So it really is a fine tuning
Mm-hmm.
of our human sort
Okay,
of
okay,
dial.
so with my guy pals, I can't ever go to them and face them and say I'm going to be a more sensitive person. Okay, so how do I express to them that I am, but in a masculine way?
Oh wow. So yeah, so right. So I get that because women intuition has been associated with femininity for historically. I think just because it's more on the more creative side of our brains, but I mean in terms of communicating it, I like what you said. Use your hunches. The word hunches and your gut feelings. There's just a different language that you can use for the same thing. Really, it's just it boils down to semantics.
So I can use the word hunches to cover up my sensitivity.
Yeah, that's a tough word, right?
Man, if that ever got out, I'd have to hang up the hat, man. Put on some mom jeans or something, Get me a latte or instead of a cup of coffee.
Exactly.
So can't do that. I got an image to uphold here. Teflon coat. We're getting near the end of the broadcast. A couple more questions. Can you
Very good.
choose or request a new conscious by tapping into a vibration frequency of the entity? Talking about an angel.
Oh, okay. Well, I think that ultimately, again, I'm going to just go back to saying that it's a growth process within us. And really, it comes down to a release of, ultimately, for me, I think it's the release of our fears, facing our fears, getting past our fears. And not sure exactly which kind of entities we're talking about. It's hard to
Well,
have
there
this
better
discussion
be
over
good ones.
chat.
I'm hoping they're referring to good
We're still talking
entities.
about angels here. Okay, okay, good. So
Yeah.
so good entities, good
Yeah,
angels,
that's what I'm thinking.
right? So embodying that energy and connecting with it is surely going to help us on that way. But when we're moving into that trust and that higher connection and higher vibration is a wonderful support on that journey, because that connection alone can really give us something to believe in and something to trust and hold on to.
Mm. Okay. David Brunel says, is the perpetuation of an urban tale or old wives' tale a distraction from intuition discerning false stories? It's a tough one for me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't. I think that you just have to really ultimately put it to your own intuition and your own sort of litmus test when it comes to those old wives' tales. And there might be some truth in it, but if it's
Mm-hmm.
not something that resonates with you, you don't need to hold on to it,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of what it is.
So intuition could be discernment.
Yes, that's
Okay.
a part of it. Discernment is sort of when your mind and your intuition work together to
So
make sense of
without
something.
making a guarantee, can you speculate or suggest then that paying more attention to one's intuition on maybe smaller and smaller? Because I think a lot of times we just want to apply it to the biggest things in our lives. I'm thinking that, like you kind of said, maybe we should apply them to smaller things to get sort of exercise that to
Yes.
in conjunction with large things. But would you suggest that a person's life would be better or more successful? I think you mentioned in your book that you say you find your truth.
Yes, and it does start with those very small first steps. And the biggest, most profound spiritual experience I ever had came from the very smallest steps of forgiveness, release, fearlessness, trust in life. Just exercising those little habits in very small ways can bring huge breakthroughs in your awakening. So, all of it, like every little step matters. And ultimately, yes, it's about becoming a more awake person, a person who is more conscious and has an expanded view of reality and our role in it.
Mm, okay. All right. Well, we've been talking a lot of stuff about this book here, Radical Intuition, a revolutionary guide to your inner power. How can somebody get the book, Kim?
You can get it online everywhere in bookstores or on my website, kimchesney.com.
All right. Well, we come to the end of the broadcast. Anything you'd like to say finally for the end of the show?
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody that they have intuition and to use it. And my favorite mantra at the end of the day, to your own higher self, be true.
Mm, okay. Well, that's it.